Subscribe Nightmare Network and press the bell icon to listen horror and scary stories regularly.
What can you expect from a 12-year-old boy? He is not very smart, and he lives in his own world. This happened when I was 12 years old. We were living in a village. My friend Jonah used to live near my house. He was a sharp kid. He was a very smart boy. This happened when Jonah used to tell me that he has a cousin who believes in a lot of haunted things. He visits haunted places and shoots videos there. I didn't believe in this. But in real, there was a story in our village about our graveyard. There was a graveyard half an hour away from our village. The story of the graveyard was very famous. A woman used to live there. She committed suicide in the graveyard. No one actually knows the reason behind that suicide. People were used to say that. Her soul still wanders in the graveyard. Whoever used to go there never came back, especially at night. I still didn't believe in these things. Jonah told me once. When I went to his house for lunch, he told me that her cousin will come to her house tomorrow. I was very excited to see her cousin. I wanted to know what kind of person he was. The next day we came back from school. I was very excited. We went to Jonah's house. Jonah's mother was cooking food. Her father was cleaning his tractor. Jonah asked his father, "Michael hasn't come yet?" His father said, "He will come in 10-15 minutes." We sat outside and waited for Michael. His cousin's name was Michael. Jonah and I were very excited. As soon as Michael arrived, he was a tall man. His beard was very long. He was wearing a black coat. He was a good-looking and charming personality. As soon as he reached, he asked Jonah, "How are you, boy?" Jonah was very shy. He didn't say anything. He looked at me. He asked me, "Who are you?" I was very surprised. His father said, "This is Jonah's friend, Tony." We introduced each other. We sat inside. We were drinking tea. Asked Jonah, "Is he your cousin?" He said, "Yes, he is my cousin." I didn't believe that this man could be his cousin. Anyways, we had tea. We sat together till evening. I went to my house. I asked my mother, "My friend's cousin comes, if I will stay there tonight." My family agreed to this. I went to Jonah's house on my bicycle. Jonah and her cousin were talking. They were laughing. I sat next to them. Jonah's cousin Michael, he said, "Is there any scary or haunted place here?" "I want to explore it." I kept quiet. Jonah's parents were sitting next to us. They were having dinner. When they heard this, Jonah's father said, "There is no such thing here. This place is clean." Jonah saw them. He kept quiet. When they finished dinner, his parents get inside of the room. We came out of the house. Jonah told her cousin, Michael, "There is a graveyard here. It is half an hour away. There is a story there. We can't go there at night, because that place is haunted and dangerous. There is a woman there. She is a hunter. Whoever goes there at night, she scares them." When Michael heard this, he got excited. He said, "This is what I want. We will explore this place tomorrow." Jonah agreed to this, but I kept quiet. Michael looked at me and asked, "Will you come?" I thought first. Then I agreed to him, because he was a guest here. I didn't think it was appropriate to refuse his offer, even though it was dangerous. After all, I was a 12-year-old boy. What could I say to him? I agreed to it. We had breakfast in the morning. Jonah and I skipped our school without letting our families know about it. We went to the graveyard. We didn't have a ride. We were walking. It was half an hour away. There was nothing there. We walked there. We explored the surrounding area. As soon as it was night, at around 9 or 10 o'clock, darkness was everywhere. It was dark and pitch black there. We turned on our flashlights. There was a lock upon the door of the graveyard. We broke the lock. It was illegal, but we had to do it. As soon as we went in, it was silent everywhere. We went inside the grave. It was a graveyard. Jonah's cousin Michael, he took out his camera and started recording. He was saying to the camera, "We have come to a new place." I think he was running his YouTube channel, but I don't have any idea. I am not sure about this at all. but he was recording a video, and as soon as we went inside the graveyard, I don't remember exactly, but some voices were coming, like someone was clapping, something like that. I asked Jonah, "Jonah, are you hearing these voices too?" Jonah looked at me and didn't say anything. He ignored this. As soon as we went ahead, Michael asked Jonah, "Jonah, why don't we leave you alone here?" Johanna got scared of him and immediately said, "Michael, do you want me to die?" Michael laughed at this. How can someone make such a weird joke in that situation? I asked myself. Anyway, we went ahead and those voices were still coming to me, like someone was clapping or two stones were rubbing against each other. Then suddenly we stopped. Michael said, "Are you hearing these voices too?" I immediately said, "Yes, I have been hearing them for a long time," but I didn't say anything. Michael got scared. Anyway, Michael said, "I think we will have to face something in this graveyard, because these can be signs." I got very scared as soon as I heard this. What is he saying? What is going to happen? I asked myself. But we were standing there. We were not able to do anything. We were looking at Michael. "Michael, what do we have to do next? Where will we go? Should we go back?" I asked him, but he was quiet. And suddenly we saw that from behind the bushes, from near a grave, a little black cloth came flying in the air and came up. That cloth was like a person flying in the air, a woman. Yes, it was possible that this was the same girl who committed suicide, but we were not able to see her feet, nor her hands, her face. No, only her hair and the black cloth that was flying in the air. When I saw it, I was freezed there and shocked. That was my first time when I pee in my pants out of fear. I got scared and froze there. Michael was also looking at this. Then I heard some voices. Michael was muttering some words from his mouth, some words that were completely out of my understanding. As soon as he was saying those words, that figure, that creature was going backwards, but it used to come to attack us. The way Michael used to say those words, it used to go backwards. I didn't think anything. I grabbed Jonah's hand and ran away. We were running without thinking, without looking back. As soon as we went out of the graveyard, we stood there and looked back. We were waiting for Michael. We called out, "Michael, where are you? Come on, let's go." But his voice was not coming. We were completely scared that Michael might have been attacked. But then we saw that something was coming running from there. That was Michael. He was coming screaming, "Run from here, run." As soon as he came out, he grabbed our hands and we ran. We kept running for half an hour. We kept running without stopping. That was a very desolate place. That road was a dirty area. There was nothing behind it. It was dark. We kept running. We reached home. We sat down at one place. Michael was very scared. We were all sweating. Then I asked Michael a question. "Michael, I know this was a childish question, but even I didn't know why I asked this question." I said, "Michael, not tonight. Why don't we go to that place again tomorrow and compete with that thing?"
In 2012, I was home alone one night while my parents were out on one of their weekly date nights. One of them involved drinking too much at dinner and passing out in the movie theater. Anyways, I had just come back from an afternoon jog and was quite sweaty, so I decided to take a cold shower and clean up a bit. My house doesn't have air conditioning, so it was pretty humid, so I opened a few windows to let some fresh air in. I remember opening a window in the kitchen, 2 windows across from each other in the living room, and 1 window in the basement. I knew I was going to spend the evening watching Netflix down there because it was cooler. I took a shower, got dressed, and went downstairs to make dinner. I brought my food down to the basement and turned on Netflix to start my night of watching a lot of new shows. I don't remember falling asleep, but I think it was soon after eating and lying down. When I woke up, it was dark outside, and the only light coming into the basement was from the TV screen. It was freezing in the basement, and I could feel a cold breeze moving through the room because the window had been open for too long. I got up and went to the light switch at the bottom of the stairs. I closed the window and then went back to turn off the TV. I got my dishes and went upstairs. When I got there, all the lights were off, which meant that my parents were still not home from their date. I cleaned the dishes, put them in the dishwasher, and closed the window above the sink. Before I went to my room for the night, I remembered that the windows in the living room were still open. I walked over to close the window by the TV and the next one by the front porch. I saw that my mom's vase of fake flowers had been knocked off the table in front of the window, and the flowers were all over the floor. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe there was a strong breeze and the curtains had tipped it over. I closed the window and started picking up the flowers. While I was cleaning, I heard what I can only imagine was a door handle being twisted. I listened as hard as I could and followed the sound of the handle until I found a creak in the hallway floor upstairs. I froze for what seemed like an eternity while I held the vase in one hand and the flowers in the other. I slowly stood up and looked out the front window to see if my parents' car was in the driveway. Upstairs, the driveway was empty, which made my heart sink. I quickly and quietly put the pot of flowers on the table and walked quietly to the bottom of the stairs to look up. As I got closer, I heard 2 more creaks on the floor, which stopped me in my tracks. I waited and didn't hear anything. I was now just a few steps away from the stairs. I took those last few steps and put one hand on the railing. I peered around the corner and saw nothing but darkness. I didn't know what to do. Do I flick on the lights and let the potential intruder in my house know that I'm coming upstairs? Do I leave and go to a friend's house? Do I call my parents? Do I grow a pair and just go upstairs? I decided to turn my phone on silent and go to the kitchen to text my dad, making sure I was close to the back door for an easy getaway. He said it's an old house, it's just settling after a really hot day. I told him about the sound of the door handle twisting. He just assumed there was an open window upstairs and the wind was knocking a door against the frame. Was that it just be a window that was left open? I felt a huge chunk of my anxiety start to fade after talking with my dad. So I decided to grab a glass of water and head on up to bed. I flicked on the lights for the stairs and started making my way up. But slowly, a tiny knot in my stomach from before I got to the top of the stairs, and noticed that all of the doors were wide open except for mine. My parents' room and a spare bedroom room were on the left, and the den and my room were on the right with the bathroom at the end of the hallway. Though, as my dad had predicted, my door was cracked just enough that a priest could be making it hit the door frame. It being as hot as it was today, it wasn't unusual for my mom to open all the doors and windows upstairs. I exhaled a sigh of relief now, fully confident that my dad was right. I turned on the lights to my room, did a quick look around, and walked over to my nightstand to put my water beside my laptop. Then I went to the bathroom to get ready for bed. As I lay in bed trying to get sleepy, I was watching my favorite reruns of Seinfeld on my laptop. Then out of nowhere, I heard the sound of something slowly scraping my closet door. I quickly flicked on the light beside my bed. My closet door was cracked open, ever so slightly. Questions started racing through my head. Was it open the whole time? Was it closed when I came in? I was positive that it was closed when I came in before I even had time to rationalize my thoughts. I heard the most disturbing, creepy, quiet, sinister laugh I've ever heard in my life. No horror movie could ever replicate the sound I just heard. As soon as I slid the laptop off my legs, the closet door burst open and someone was standing in it. My clothes were partially covering their body and face. I looked closer, and there was the most sickly, palest, dirtiest woman I've ever seen. For the split second that I saw her in horror, the image was burned into my brain forever. She had no shoes on her disgusting, dirt-stained feet. Her skin was sickeningly white with cuts and dry blood from her face, down her arms all the way up to her legs. She was wearing what I assume used to be a white nightgown. It was now a discolored mess of dirt blood, and who knows what else. Her gray, blue-veined, sunken-in face looked a lot like a decomposing skeleton, and the rest of her face was hidden by my clothes. She asked in a low, grumbling voice, "Have you seen my baby?" That was enough to make me grab my phone and run. As soon as I was halfway out of my bedroom door, I heard her scream, "Give me back my baby!" and clothes hangers thrashing around behind me. I ran as fast as I could to the bathroom upstairs and locked the door. A second later, I heard a huge crash against the door and the woman screaming in a devilish voice demanding that I return her baby. I called 911, and the operator assured me that the police would be there as soon as possible. The woman wouldn't stop, even though her shrieks turned into low, demon-like grunts, and her banging on the door turned into heavy blows that seemed to last forever. Hearing a heavenly sound and the police calling out that they were entering the house made me scream at the top of my lungs that I was upstairs. All I could hear next was the officers yelling, and the woman growling. The officers ended up pepper spraying the woman, and it took 3 of them to get her to the ground. She was yelling like she was possessed the whole time. I didn't come out of the bathroom until the police told me she was out of the house. The police told me she was probably on drugs or an escaped mental patient from the next county over. I told them she sounded like she was possessed or something, but they said it was just her needing her medication. My parents arrived soon after I gave my statement to the police. We moved out of that house a month later.
You won't believe this thing that happened to me a few years ago. I was an ordinary boy, very happy, energetic, and I used to finish my work. I was working in a nearby Starbucks, and it was enough for me as a teenager. You won't believe it after listening to my story, but it's absolutely true. My parents, who used to go out for work, used to leave me alone at home. I had a younger sister whose name was Susan, but she couldn't get along with me, so she used to go out with my parents. I used to stay alone at home. This is from that day when on a weekday my parents and my younger sister Susan went out of town for some work and left me alone at home. I was very happy. I got freedom. I ordered a pizza, started watching Netflix, and was enjoying my show. It was around 10 o'clock when some strange things started happening to me. I was watching my show and suddenly I heard someone walking near my house. It was like someone was walking outside my house, outside my room, near my door. I couldn't understand anything. I ignored it, that it was just my imagination, that it was just a hallucination. But it wasn't like that. As soon as I ignored it and got busy with my show, it started getting worse. That it was difficult for me to sit there. I was very nervous. I got up, I grabbed my phone and called my parents, but their number was switched off. I didn't know what to do. I came out of the house. I looked around, but there was no one there. How? How is this possible? I asked myself. You won't believe it. It was so obvious that someone was running around my house. Not just one, but many people who were bothering me. I can't believe it. I can't remember anything, but it was like many people were running around my house. I ignored it again. I sat inside and continued my show. My pizza was over. I got up and went to the kitchen and took the cold drink out of the fridge. I put some pieces of ice in it and drank it. I was enjoying it a lot. I had almost forgotten what had happened to me earlier. Then I sat on my sofa and started watching Netflix. But suddenly I felt that a shadow was standing outside my window and looking at me. When I looked there, I couldn't see anything, but there was a lot of smoke, as if something was burning there. I was shocked at what was happening. I opened the window, and when I looked there was nothing. I couldn't understand why this was happening. I sat down again and started watching my show. Then suddenly, from behind me, someone put their hand on my shoulder. I was completely shocked. My whole body was shaking like a jelly. I screamed and jumped off the sofa. I looked behind me, and there was a tall, thin man standing there. That man's face was black. His eyes were very red. I couldn't see his lips. It was like his face was stitched. His hands were very long. He was wearing a black coat. He looked at me, and his eyes ate me up. I couldn't understand what to do. He was so tall that I thought if I ran from the right side, he would still catch me, and if I ran from the left side, he would still catch me. I didn't understand anything. I went behind the TV and stood at the guard's door. He slowly walked towards me. I pushed the TV stand and it fell on him. He was a little behind me. I ran after him and came out of the house. I started crying. I started screaming. A few neighbors came out from their house and they asked me, "What happened to you? Why are you doing this?" I explained everything to them. I called the police. The police went to my house. We checked. There was no one there. He saw my entire house. That tall man who ruined my sleep, who made my night a nightmare, he was not there at all. How can it happen? You can't believe it. But then I forgot that it was a dream for me. Then I went home. I called my friend Roger. He came to me. We both sat together and started playing chess. My friend knew what had happened to me. That's why he was very patient with me and gave me a lot of courage. We were already playing when suddenly the lights went on and off. I thought it was some kind of power issue. I ignored it. Then I kept my mobile flashlight on so that if such an issue arose again, we would have light. We were playing chess. Suddenly we felt that that tall man was standing outside my house again. I don't know why. I didn't see it, I just felt that way. I told my friend, let's go out for a walk. We both locked the door and went out. We were walking towards the town in our neighborhood. We saw that tall man again. Why was he visible to us? My friend also saw him. He was standing right next to the door of my house. We looked back. He was standing there and shaking his hand. We ran away from there. We ran out of the neighborhood and went to a house. We knocked on the door. An old man came out of the house. He called us inside. We sat inside. He gave us tea. He encouraged us. Then he called the police again. The police came and did an investigation. They searched our entire neighborhood, but there was no one there. I still remember this story. I am scared. The incident that happened to me was very dangerous. I still think about it. I have never seen that tall man again, but I still feel that he is around. He is still waiting for me.